Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, this morning I saw an article on Vlad TV about Matthew Knowles. And for those of you who don't know, he is Beyonce's father. He's a dark skinned African American man. And he was talking about his struggles with colorism. He mentioned how he went to predominantly white schools growing up, and that eventually he transferred to Fisk University, which is a black university. And when he transferred to that university, he realized that colorism was a major part of the culture there. He referred to the brown paper bag test. That's a test that they used way back in the day to basically prevent dark skinned people from having certain privileges or having access to certain organizations. So basically, you had to be the same shade as the brown paper bag or lighter in order to go to certain events, in order to join certain civic organizations or fraternities or sororities, etc. So he experienced colorism. So I'm sure that as a dark-skinned man, he was discriminated against. And he also talked about his mother's attitude towards women. His mother told him, don't bring a nappy-head girl home to the house and all that kind of stuff. And I think that goes beyond just the texture of the woman's hair. It is a subtle reference to a lighter-skinned woman, meaning his mother wanted him to bring home someone who's light-skinned, someone with quote-unquote good hair. And we know what good hair means in the black community. That means hair that resembles a white woman's hair or white people's hair. It means anything other than African hair. So he talked about how that experience, the experience with colorism, the experience in his household where his mother is telling him not to bring home a nappy-haired girl. He talks about how basically that made him enraged. And he expressed that rage through eroticism. Like instead of like being angry, what he did was he decided, well, he's going to be with white women or very light women. And he talks about how when he first met Tina Knowles, he thought that she was a white woman. He would later go on to marry Tina Knowles, and they would have Beyonce and Solange, and I don't know if they have other kids, and then they would go on to get divorced. Now, also, he pointed out in this article how you have a lot of successful black singers who have one thing in common. They're very fair-skinned, they're light-skinned, and he implied that somehow that's part of the reason why they are so successful. Now, I want to just take some brief time to talk about this. First of all, this issue of colorism is pervasive in our community. I mean, I remember growing up, there was a dark-skinned kid in our neighborhood that we used to hang out with and play with and stuff like that as kids. And everybody would have all these dark-skinned jokes against this young brother, man. I remember it. And that was my first encounter with colorism, just seeing how people would treat this brother. We heard kids tell all these "you so black" jokes. So this problem still goes on in our community. I mean, it's even pervasive here on YouTube, where you have these fake pro-blacks referring to a black man as crispy, and they try to make excuses for it, saying they're referring to him being ashy. Get the hell out of here. You're not referring to him being ashy. You're referring to him being dark-skinned. So we see that happen all the time. I mean, like crispy, meaning like burnt, like when you burn something, it's black and crispy. So people are indoctrinated with this self-hatred, with this colorism, despite their profession of being enlightened or having consciousness and all that kind of stuff. They still have colorism in their mentality. They still have hostility towards darker skinned black people. It's still a pervasive problem. So you have this young man, Matthew Knowles, growing up in predominantly white schools. And that's one of the problems with some people's approach to integration. They view white people as better. So they view like white schools as inherently better. They view white people as inherently better. They view white neighborhoods and white facilities as inherently better. So I think that that implicit message helps feed that colorism. So when you have, you have people, for instance, who will say, well, I'm going to go to the movie way out in the suburbs, so I could avoid being around these colored folks. Or I'm going to go to this mall way out in the suburbs so I don't have to be around black people and stuff like that. So you had this inferiority complex. And I think that that was like the beginning of this man's colorism, being raised and going to predominantly white schools. And then when you have colorism coming from your own parents, that's when the indoctrination gets even more intense and more deep. Because it's one thing to hear a message from television or one thing to hear a message from your friends and stuff like that. It's quite another thing hearing a message from someone who is supposed to be raising you, someone who's supposed to be guiding you, and they are teaching you to hate yourself, to hate your hair, to hate your complexion. I mean, because what else can that be but self-hatred? I mean, here you have a dark-skinned man being told, don't bring home a nappy-head girl. And this man is dark-skinned. He has, kinky hair, which somebody could call nappy and stuff like that. So basically, his mother was saying, don't bring home a woman that resembles anything like us or our family. Bring home somebody that's white or someone that's damn near white. If they're not white, they got to be super light. And that's what this man went out and did. He went out and got with these light-skinned women. And I'm sure that, like, when he went through colorism at the university, when he found that he was too dark to be accepted in certain cliques and all that kind of stuff, I think that probably fueled his self-hatred and made him go after these white women and very light women. And that's what happens in this society. We are taught that white women are some kind of trophy, so it's no coincidence that you see these black athletes with these very white women, or if they can't get a white woman, they'll settle for a very light-skinned black woman who's virtually white. And that's common. And I think that this brother basically did the same thing, when he married this woman and when he dated all these white women and very light women. And also, like, that brings me to this whole issue of, like, these entertainers as well. He talked about, like, how all these successful singers and entertainers have one thing in common, and that's their dark skin. And that's very true. I don't doubt for a second that Beyonce's success is in part due to her very light skin. Because you have many dark-skinned sisters who can sing way better than Beyonce, who can dance way better or on the same level as a Beyonce, but they don't have that same kind of success. I mean, and I'm not to take anything away from Beyonce. She's a great entertainer. Not to take anything from Alicia Keys. She's a great singer. Not to take anything away from Mariah Carey. She's a great singer, but we know that there are dark-skinned women that are just as talented as those women, but they don't receive the same kind of attention and acclaim and recognition because this society has European and Eurocentric values. So they value black women who more closely resemble the European standard of beauty. And that's why, you'll have these women who are very light excel in entertainment over darker skinned women. I mean, one of the blatant examples of that would be like the whole thing with India Arie, like how she got basically shafted by the Grammys and all that kind of stuff, even though she's had a successful album, she's a great singer and all that kind of stuff, but she didn't fit that Eurocentric mold or standard of beauty. So she was basically marginalized. I mean, you got plenty of great dark-skinned sisters who are just as talented or even more talented in many cases. But because they are darker and they look less European, they have less success. And I think that he raised a valid point on that issue. And it's something that we need to think about. Like, we need to reflect upon our own conduct and stuff like that. and ask ourselves, are we favoring this person or that person because they are lighter? Are we more attracted to this person or that person because they're lighter? We need to look in the mirror and evaluate our own colorism, check our own colorism. So tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.